Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to review the Huion Kamvas 16 pen display. This is one of two pen displays that Huion released last month in June 2019. This is Kamvas 16, the other one is the Kamvas 16 Pro. So this review is going to be very detailed, it's going to be very long. If you want to save some time, you can actually check out the text review that I have already written. The link is in the video description below. Let's take a look at the things included first. Now, if you want to jump straight to the drawing test, you can visit the timestamps in the video description below. So here we have this thank you card with the email address of the customer service. So if you need to contact them for whatever reason, this is the direct email. This is the microfiber cleaning cloth for the pen display. On this card, there are links to where you can download the driver. There is no driver disc included. This black booklet here, this is the quick start guide, and here we have one artist glove. This is the wall power plug. On the ordering page, you can choose which head you need. So here in Singapore, we use this 3-pin, and you can just twist it to lock it into the plug. This is the data connection cable. On this end here, this will go to the pen display. On the other end, we have 3 connections. This USB type A port will go to the computer so that the pen display can be detected. And this is actually for the power. So from the wall power plug, you have to connect this here in order to power the pen display. This is needed because the USB port doesn't provide enough power for the pen display. And this is the graphic connection. This is HDMI. And here's the pen and the stand. The pen supports up to slightly over 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. 2 side buttons here, a large rubber grip, so it's really comfortable to hold. The weight is just right, it's not too heavy or light. This pen is not powered by battery, so it doesn't require charging. With the pen stand, you can put the pen horizontally on it or vertically like this. The pen stand can be opened by turning it anti-clockwise, and inside there are 10 replacement nibs and a nib remover. Build quality for the pen and the stand feels alright, feels quite solid. This tablet stand is not included. This sells for US $30 separately on the ordering page. Now, I do recommend you get some sort of tablet stand or support for your pen display, because if you use the pen display flat on the table, it's not good for your posture. Personally, for me, I cannot work more than 5 minutes with the pen display flat on the table surface. So this is how the tablet stand from Huion, how it works. You can flip out the metal pieces here to work as the stand. So this is the lowest possible height. You can adjust it to slightly different height using the slots that are here. But generally speaking, there are only 2 heights available. This short metal piece here and this taller one here. They are held together by very strong magnets, so you do need to apply some force to push them out. So this is the highest angle, which is around 45 degrees. There are 2 large pieces of rubber here, and to prevent the pen display from slipping down, there is this latch here that you can flip open, and there is a long piece of rubber here as well. The overall build quality is quite solid. Now, you may not want to get Huion's stand, but do get a stand from somewhere. So this is the Huion Kamvas 16 pen display. It has a 15.6-inch IPS panel that has a matte drawing surface on it. Now, this is actually a monitor that you have to connect to your computer in order to use it. This is not a tablet, even though it has the form factor of a tablet. Sometimes when I use it, I do find myself touching the screen, but it has no touch features. The only way to interact with this screen is with the pen, so the cursor will follow the pen around. So The design looks pretty nice, pretty simple. It's very thin. Build quality is very solid, even though the whole thing is made of plastic. It's some pretty hard plastic. Rounded corners. On the side here, there are 7 shortcut buttons, 4 on the ring and 1 in the middle, 2 here. This is the touch strip. 2 buttons here and another 5 buttons here. The power button is located on the right side, just below the Huion logo there, very close to the cable. And there is this port here, which I have no idea what it's for. So there is a total of 14 physical shortcut buttons on the side and this touch strip. All these buttons can be configured to specific keyboard shortcuts that you want. On this screen, it's 1080p. The brightness, well, it's not that bright. According to the specifications, the maximum brightness is 220 nits, but I measured it to be around 150 nits. So this is best used in an environment where the lighting isn't too strong. So if you are using it in your room, it would be good to maybe close the curtains slightly. If you are a left-handed user, you can actually turn this around to have the shortcut buttons on the right side. The driver does allow you to rotate the screen 180 degrees. On the back, we actually do not have any rubber fit, so it's just this matte surface on the side here. And this whole piece here is actually level. These 2 parts are not like protruding, so I do recommend you get a stand to put this pen display. Color accuracy as measured by my Spider 5 calibrator, it's 81% sRGB, 62% Adobe RGB, and 59% NTSC. 81% sRGB is actually good enough for most purposes, including drawing, but I wouldn't use this pen display for editing photos, for example. And also with the matte surface screen, it does introduce this, the white haze or glare when you reflect light off it. And this matte surface screen also affects brightness. If you need to adjust the brightness, contrast, or other color settings of the display, you can press this button here in the middle for about 5 seconds and the on-screen menu will appear. There is actually not a lot you can change. Earlier this was connected to Windows and now it's connected to Mac OS. Now the driver functionality on both Mac and Windows is the same, but the driver installation on Mac OS, especially with Mac OS 10.14 Mojave, there are a few more steps in addition to just clicking and installing. With Mac OS 10.14 Mojave, you need to go into System Preferences, Security and Privacy, Privacy, Accessibility, and click the plus icon here to look for the Huion tablet driver in the Applications folder. Add that here. I've already added. So this will allow macOS to work with the tablet driver. If it's not here, if this driver is not here, the cursor is not going to move, the shortcut buttons are not going to work. Let's see what we can do with the driver. So this is where you can assign specific keyboard shortcuts to the physical shortcut buttons on the left side. So for example, here you can click on one of the buttons and click here, and this will allow you to set shortcut buttons, assign mouse functions, and there's this feature here. If you are using a dual monitor setup, you definitely need to use this functionality, switch display. When you have switch display assigned to one of the buttons here, you can press it once and the cursor will jump to the other screen, and you can control that cursor using the pen on the Huion display. Click it again and the cursor will jump back to below the pen tip here. The last function here is the ability to launch programs. If for some reason you do not want to use the physical shortcut buttons or the touch bar on the left side, you can actually turn them off, but I see no reason why you should turn them off because they are to the side and they won't interfere with your work even if you don't use them. So this is where you can configure the two side buttons on the pen, and here you can change the pressure sensitivity using this. Unfortunately, this pressure curve. This cannot be manually adjusted by plotting the points, so you have to use this. And lastly, for work area, this is where you can map the working area of the screen to your computer. This is mapped 1:1 by default. And the more important thing here is if you are left-handed, you can choose to rotate the screen 180 degrees here. The gap between this glass surface and the actual screen behind, it's very minimal, so parallax is not really a problem. If you do have parallax issues, you can click here to calibrate it. Just click on the red dots, and once it's done, the pen cursor should align directly beneath the pen tip, regardless of where the pen tip is. And now let's test out the drawing performance of this pen display with the various graphics software that I have on Mac OS. So the touch strip here, it actually works quite nicely. And pressure sensitivity works really well. The initial activation force, it's really light, so you can barely glance on the surface. As long as it's touching the screen, you will get a line. Let's take a look at the transition from thin to thick and how it handles the curves. Some tablets and pen displays have problems with curves, so here you can see the curves. They are very smooth as I move and turn. And also the transition from thin to thick, it's very smooth. It's able to hold the pressure consistently. What I mean by that is when you're drawing like this, the line should have almost the same thickness until you press down harder or lighter to get a different thickness. So here, the pressure consistency, it's very good. With some other pen displays or tablets, when you draw like this, you can sometimes see some jitter, but here we have none of those issues, which is really great. Let's try and draw something. Now this screen may have a matte surface, but it's actually quite smooth. I wouldn't say it's slippery, but it's definitely smoother compared to what I expected. Let me try the undo button that I've assigned here, and it works fine. Pay attention to where the cursor is and where my pen tip is. So the cursor, it's almost always directly beneath the pen tip, which is great. Let me switch to the eraser by pressing this button that I've assigned. Create a little highlight. Oh, too much. Pressure sensitivity works really well. And the strokes, they taper very nicely, very gradually. So this is how the strokes will look when you taper them. With some tablets and pen displays, when you draw strokes like this, the taper can be quite abrupt, but here it's very smooth. It's very nice. The initial activation force is very low, so right now I'm holding the pen right at the back using the least amount of pressure that I can, and I can see lines on the screen. So that's how sensitive the pen is, and I don't see any input lag, so this is very responsive. So overall, the drawing experience, it's very satisfactory with Photoshop on the Mac. This is Adobe Illustrator on the Mac, and pressure sensitivity works well. No problems here. And now let's use Medibank Paint Pro. So pressure sensitivity works really well here, and it's very responsive. Looks like there is no input lag as well. Curves also taper very nicely. Let's see what happens when we draw very slowly. I'm looking out for jitter, and it looks like I don't have any issues with jitter here. So I don't have any issues with Medibank Paint Pro. This works really nicely. This is Krita, and by the way, this pen display actually supports tilt sensitivity. So pay attention to the angle of this cursor as I turn the pen. So I'm going to draw something horizontally. So the shading, it's dark at the top and it's light at the bottom. I'm going to turn my pen around to have the shading appear to be dark at the bottom and light at the top. So tilt sensitivity, it actually works quite well. And this is Clip Studio Paint on the Mac. Pressure sensitivity works really well. It's very responsive. Now there is an issue with Clip Studio Paint here though. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it happened a few times already. With this G pen in Clip Studio Paint, sometimes when I draw these tapered strokes, as I lift the pen up, you can see the ends, they are actually thicker and sometimes they may appear to be a dot. I'm not sure why this happens with G pen. And now I've switched over to using this Smooth India ink brush, and I can see that it still affects the lines, and now I have switched over to using this Smooth India ink brush and I can still see the problem. And now I'm using Clip Studio Paint on Windows. I want to see if we have the same problem as earlier on the Mac. So here it seems fine. I don't see any issues with pressure sensitivity. Maybe let's draw some quick strokes to really test it out. So this is the same G pen, and the strokes here, as you can see, they taper really gradually. And definitely no problems here with Clip Studio on Windows. This is Photoshop on Windows, and pressure sensitivity works pretty well, so no issues here. And lines, well, let's see, they are quite smooth. The lines, they taper very well. The transition from thin to thick is also very gradual. The curves are very nice. No problems here. Medibank Paint Pro works fine. No issues here. This is Adobe Illustrator. Pressure sensitivity works. You just have to turn on pressure with the brush you are using. Now, one thing I noticed about Illustrator is there seems to be some split-second delay before the line appears. So pay attention to what I'm drawing and see if you can spot that split-second delay before the line actually appears. So sometimes when you're drawing, especially if you're drawing cartoons with Illustrator, it can be a bit irritating. It seems to be some sort of input lag. I'm not sure what it is exactly. It seems to be some sort of input lag. I'm not sure exactly. But anyway, I don't really draw line art with Illustrator, so not really an issue here. And now I'm using Krita on Windows. Now, one thing I noticed about Krita on Windows is there seems to be some sort of brightness flicker going on. So the brightness of the screen, especially the white areas, it would flicker brighter and dimmer occasionally. I'm not sure if it's specific to Krita because I only see this happening with Krita, not in Photoshop, not in other software that I have used. So it's pretty strange. Watching the screen flicker, it's quite uncomfortable for my eyes. I'm not sure if you can spot the flickering. It flickered a few times while I was drawing all these characters. But drawing performance, it's fine. It's just a flicker that annoys me. Alright, to conclude, I'm just going to give you the pros and cons, talk about the things that I like and dislike. What I like about this pen display is the design. It looks good. Build quality is very sturdy. The physical shortcut buttons, they work great. They have very nice feedback. The pen is very sensitive. It's very accurate. And the overall drawing experience, the performance with most of the drawing apps that I've tested, most of them work very well. As for the downside, color accuracy could be better. 81% sRGB is good enough for most purposes, but 99% sRGB would have been better. The screen could be brighter, so my room is quite bright and I have some issues with the brightness. So when I'm working with this, I need to close my curtains. So if you are working with this pen display in a room with bright ambient light, that could be an issue. As for drawing, the cons for the drawing performance, there's only one glitch, major glitch that I noticed, and that's with Clip Studio Paint on the Mac. There's this issue with the line tapering into a big dot or something thick, which is quite weird because this affects only Clip Studio Paint on the Mac, but not Clip Studio Paint on Windows. So hopefully in the future, maybe a driver could solve this issue. The last thing I want to mention is this pen display. It actually gives out some heat. So I've been working with this for almost 3 hours making this review, and this area here, the bottom area and the right side here, it's a bit warm. Now I have my air conditioning on, but if I turn it off, sometimes I feel that it's a bit too warm. So if you're drawing, maybe it would be good to use the artist glove that is provided to provide some insulation against the heat. It's not like really hot or anything, it's just a typical heat that an LCD screen would give out. So that's all for this review. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. If I have any updates to my video review, I will put all that in the text review. So check out the text review. The link is in the video description below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.